All right, all right, all right. Welcome, everybody. I hate to wind that song down early, but we have important work to do together, so you'll have to excuse me. I'm Kate Rummy. I'm a Senior Vice President at MassChallenge. I'm responsible for the early stage side of the organization, and it's my pleasure to welcome you here today to our Mobility Collider. We have a packed agenda that will take us through 5:30. It'll include a quick welcome and introduction from me. I will keep it very short. An awesome panel exploring the future of AV, EV, and probably the intersection of the two. And then the highlight, no offense to our esteemed panel, but the highlight of the day will be pitches from our awesome mobility startups today, and then the chance to network directly together and with our startups after. So that's our agenda. For those of you not familiar, just 2 minutes on MassChallenge. We're a global nonprofit. Our mission is to equip bold entrepreneurs to disrupt the status quo and create meaningful change. We like to think of ourselves as a global network for innovators, particularly bringing together people who are working on some of the hardest challenges out there. And in this case, that is the future of mobility. In our day-to-day, we look to educate, connect, and support high potential startups through our no equity, no cost accelerator programs, and also in collaboration with our extraordinary network of corporate and industry partners, many of whom are here today. The mobility track we launched in 2021 specifically because we know this is an area that is poised for disruption, whether we're talking about the shared economy, electrification, automation. There is so much potential in this category, and yet the path of the entrepreneur remains difficult. So our goal here is to bring together a cohort of the bold entrepreneurs tackling challenges across the mobility sector and surround them with additional supports, resources, mentorship, access to unique perspectives so that they can advance and grow their businesses and also build community together. We are fortunate to be backed by the best. You'll see our amazing Mobility Track founding sponsors here with a huge and very special shout out to Motional, our founding partner, and NRG here in the room today. Thank you for making this work possible and also for your commitment to supporting the next generation of entrepreneurs alongside the work you do to create change in the mobility space. So with the key components of the track you can see here, this is what we aim to offer the entrepreneurs. But I think with that, we will jump to the awesome panel that we have today. I'm delighted to welcome up our moderator from the conversation, Vanessa Quirk, editorial manager and producer of the podcast City of the Future, who's going to lead a really interesting conversation, I am sure, with Pat Jameson of Motional and Danita Park at NRG. So Vanessa, I'll turn it over to you.
Hey, thank you so much, Kate, and thank you to MassChallenge for having us here and hosting us today for this conversation. First, to kick us off, I'm just going to ask the panelists to introduce themselves. I'll start, then I'll ask Pat and Danita, if you all don't mind. But I'm Vanessa. I work at Sidewalk Labs, which is an urban innovation company. And as Kate mentioned, I'm also the co-host of our podcast, City of the Future, which explores the ideas and innovations that could transform cities. We don't just look at mobility, but we look at all kinds of urban issues and innovations. But we do have 2 mobility-themed episodes that I would encourage folks to check out if you're curious. One on mobility on demand and another on flexible streets. So subscribe, but I will leave it at that and I will allow our panelists to introduce themselves. So Pat, would you mind going first?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Vanessa. And it's nice to see everyone. Happy to be here today. I'm Pat Jameson. As mentioned, I'm the Vice President of Strategy and Corporate Development for Motional. We are a self-driving vehicle company working to commercialize, develop, automated driving systems. And so in that role, I look after really the strategy of the overall company and making sure that we're positioned for success in an ever-changing landscape. And then the other part of my job is really focused on really finding the best partnerships for us to continue to further our mission of developing the most promising technology. And so, a big part of a big sponsor of obviously MassChallenge's work and you know, the cohort for this year. And so really looking forward to this conversation.
Thank you, Pat. Danita, would you mind introducing yourself?
Sure. And first of all, of course, thank you, Vanessa, Pat, Kate, and the entire Mass team for putting this on. It's a real honor to be here today. So I'm Danita Park. I'm the Director of Electric Vehicle and Commercial Development for NRG Energy. And what I'm responsible for is developing our strategy for EVs across our brands and businesses. So NRG is a Fortune 500 company. One of the things that's interesting about NRG is we have about 6 million customers across the United States, mostly in deregulated markets. We produce the electrons and we supply electrons, so a retail electric supplier. And so in the EV space, an EV without electrons is really not a lot of value to most people. So we pride ourselves on putting the electricity into the EVs, the E in the EVs. We also, on the sustainability side of things, we have been, as a power company, we've been asked to reduce our emissions for, you know, our first sustainability plan went into place in 2000 and I think we're on our 11th sustainability goal plan right now. And we're already well on track to meet 50% of our carbon emission reductions by 2025, and we do have a net zero goal by 2050. So that's me in NRG.
Fantastic. And I'm looking forward to learning more about that later in our conversation, Danita. But I do want to start with Pat, because I do think most of the conversation will probably end up talking about sustainability goals and the ways that EVs and AVs kind of intersect in that in their trajectories. Mm-hmm. But I want to start on just the topic of AVs, because I think, you know, we've been talking a lot about AVs for quite a while now, but few of us have actually seen one on our city streets. I actually rode in one for the first time yesterday, which was very exciting for me. But I'm curious to hear from you, Pat, like where are we in the trajectory of autonomous vehicles when you think about from kind of development concept all the way to commercialization and us being able to see them in our cities? Where would you say we are right now?
Sure. So yeah, as you pointed out, right, it's been a long journey, and I think, you know, that's due to the nature of really autonomous vehicles is a convergence of many disruptive technologies, right? From connectivity to electrical vehicles to machine learning to a lot of advancements in the hardware. And so, you know, when we think about the heritage of Motional, right, you know, we have, you know, our story goes all the way back to the 2000s and even prior to that, when founders of companies that, you know, have been consolidated into what is Motional today were competing in the DARPA urban challenges and really taking some of the technologies at the time and trying to really prove out that this was something that was going to be feasible. You know, fast forward to the middle of the 2010s, where the founding of the companies that, you know, really I said were the bedrock of our technology today. So, you know, heritage in the Carnegie Mellon teams from the DARPA challenges, that was Automatica, that was ultimately acquired by Aptiv, and you know, Motional subsequently, you know, kind of the company from there. But also Nutonomy, which was a Boston-based startup, you know, kind of a lot of the heritage and pride coming out of the MIT teams under Carl Yagnema, who is our president. You know, but where we think about we are today, you know, I think the 2010s were probably defined by really, you know, Waymo obviously was a leader in pioneering this, many other teams fast following, and I think, you know, largely characterized by development and really proving out the concept. And subsequent from there, I think really what you've seen over the last couple of years is there's really just a handful of companies now that have the promise of that technology of really pulling the driver out. And, you know, I'm really proud to say that we're one of those companies. And, you know, really when we think big picture to the next phase, it's really about shifting from, you know, the product development, you know, kind of the research to really kind of getting the cars in the hands of the consumers and really commercializing that technology. You know, for us, you know, we've always, you know, approached this and recognizing that the consumer is a key part of ultimately the adoption of this technology. Since 2018, we've had our cars on the roads and really a strong partnership with Lyft, right? So when we think about bringing this technology, it's not just the product, the integrated system into the vehicle. It also has to be deployed onto a ride-hailing network where consumers can access that technology. And so we're proud that since 2018, we've been able to put 100,000 plus passengers into our vehicles and allow them to hail a ride, experience the technology, and really give us critical feedback into that, you know, development of that system that's ultimately going to be deployed.
I'm going to ask one follow-up on that before I turn to you, Danita. But so it sounds like you've already started introducing these vehicles to consumers. Sounds like you're already starting to get feedback. In your mind, what is the biggest hurdle to consumer adoption? What are consumers telling you that is making them nervous, anxious, or excited? Or basically, what are the hurdles that you think the industry will have to overcome?
Yeah, so I think even in your introduction, right, I think it's just getting people into the technology. I think it's demystifying a little bit. I think it's also providing transparency to how the system is working. And so I think, obviously in the phase where we were getting people into the vehicles, there were also safety operators, in those years. And so we had a unique opportunity for people, to one, offer safe rides in that, version of our vehicle and our platform, but also to educate them. And I think as people sat in the rides and got to learn more about how the car works, how it ultimately is providing a safer ride, and it's really, constantly looking out around itself in a 360-degree fashion and keeping them safe. Once they understand it and they experience it, the biggest reaction and kind of a compliment to us is they say it's boring, right? And that's exactly what we want to hear. A couple 5-10 minutes in the car, and they're just like, oh, okay, this isn't as scary or as intense as I might have imagined. And so, from that perspective, that number I mentioned, 100,000 plus people, 98% of those folks who've ridden our technology have given us 5 out of 5 stars, which, across 100,000 rides in a Lyft vehicle, that's actually a pretty good compliment as well. So I think it's experiencing it. And that's the promise, I think, of the next couple of years, as many companies are looking to deploy their technology.
Thank you. Danita, I'm also gonna probably end up talking to you too about consumer adoption. So that's also a big hurdle potentially for EVs. But one thing that you and I talked about a bit in our pre-panel discussion was the fact that you're in Houston, and just a few months ago, Houston suffered a pretty devastating grid outage. And one of the things that you said to me that kind of stuck with me was that, if everyone had had an EV, the outcome might have been quite different. And so I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that. How would it have been different if every household in Houston had an EV? And how do you see the future of Houston potentially being more resilient if EVs do proliferate?
Oh, great question. And, we're in the Gulf, and we're just a little bit further east from the storm that came ashore, but resiliency is such a huge topic in Houston right now. And with the storm in February, I have an EV, and I was using my EV as a personal warming device. So one thing is that it's not connected to the grid. I'm an old hand when it comes to preparing for storms, because I do live in Houston, but I kept my car fully charged before the storm. And then during the storm, I was heading out there a couple times a day just to warm up. And for vehicles like the F-150 hybrid that was on the market that has, and some other vehicles also have plugs available. So you can actually plug in to your vehicle. And in some cases, you could back up your entire house. And so the F-150 Lightning that's coming to the market in Houston, if you just stop and consider for a second that battery size is about 10 times the size of a Tesla Powerwall, it's going to be meaningful in terms of the kinds of things that EVs can do for people as a resiliency tool. And I would imagine that, 10 years from now, the kinds of things that EVs are doing and how they're shaping our lives, we won't even be able to think about them today yet. It's kind of like how the iPhone had really changed everyone's lives when it came to thinking about what you could do with something in your pocket as a little mini computer. So that's the kind of change that I'm envisioning with EVs on the grid.
Yeah, and I'm imagining that, for someone in California, it might be perhaps an easier sell, but potentially to say, hey, why don't you switch over to an EV? My guess is that when you're talking to consumers in Texas, it might be a bit more of a hurdle there to convince someone to make the shift. I know that you and your company have already started internally converting your fleet to 100% electric. So what are you learning from that process, and how do you think you're going to apply that learnings towards potentially consumer education or pushing the needle beyond just your fleet and to folks that are going to be like you and me buying EVs?
Oh, what a great question. So just to paint a little picture of the kind of internal consumer that I have. So in order to get 100%, what our goal is 100% light duty vehicles by 2030. And if you could imagine, we have two internal customers. So one internal customer set is the power plant employee. And so if you can imagine, these are people, predominantly men, that have worked for our power plants since they came out of usually the military or maybe a technical school, and they've been with the power plant for 20, 30, 40 years, so very long period of time. And so you have that demographic. And then the other demographic that we have is Airtron. And so that's an in-home service company where they'll do things like HVAC, and so they're very customer facing. And so each of those two demographics are very, very different, but not what you would typically think about when you're thinking of someone who's going to adopt an EV. And how we got our internal customers on board was one, talking about the savings for O&M and fuel cost, but two, when you start talking about the performance of the vehicles that are coming to market. And I'll point again to Ford, but Ford, I think, is doing a really wonderful job when you look at their offering in terms of being able to, a strategy really, of trying to produce a better vehicle than what's on the market out there already. And so when you can give an experience to someone and just help them see that the performance is so much better in an EV, I think that's where you really start to break down some of the barriers.
So one more question for you, Danita, and then I'm going to bring Pat into this question about AVs and EVs kind of colliding here. So what about charging infrastructure? Surely that's something that's on folks' minds when they're thinking about converting. Is it a bit of a chicken and egg problem? Like, how much infrastructure do you need to convince folks to make the shift? And then how many people do you need in EVs to convince policymakers to invest more in infrastructure? How are you thinking about that tricky issue?
So I've been an EV owner now for over 5 years, and I was a little bit afraid and ashamed for two things when I first got my EV. So one, I'm a power professional, and I really struggled with what's a kWh and how do I charge the battery and how far can I drive? And what I found in my own journey was that there's a huge language barrier. So people, have a very clear mental mindset of what it takes to own and drive and refuel a fossil vehicle. There's no mental framework, no mental map for them of how you actually take that and turn that into what an electric vehicle looks like. So you're making a fuel conversion switch. And so I think, number one, with only 2 million vehicles, 2.1 million vehicles being sold ever in the United States since 2010, most people have zero experience with EVs. And so the very first challenge that we have, before we even get to the infrastructure question, is helping people understand what it really takes to drive an EV. And so I know it's stamped on a lot of people's minds that, range is an issue, and in order to have an EV, you must have infrastructure. But what people don't realize is that the vehicles that are coming to market today, where they have 250, 300, 350 miles of charge, you can drive now easily from Houston to Dallas on a single charge. You don't even need to stop. So the whole question about infrastructure, I think we need to change a little bit the narrative around that, because it's very much ingrained in people's mind that infrastructure is a barrier. And then the other point that I would make there is that 80 to 90% of charging happens at home. And so even, with longer range batteries and with lots of people not having that experience of how to fuel an EV using electricity, the final point that I would make there is just that every point you have where you can park your car that has electricity is a potential charging point, until, of course, Pat makes everything autonomous and then the vehicles are moving everywhere all the time. But for the most part, your vehicle is going to sit in a parking spot for 90-95% of the time. All those hours are potential charging times. And so I really believe that the infrastructure debate is a little bit misguided and needs a little bit of reframing to really help people understand what EVs are, what they're not, and how they perform now.
That's really interesting. I definitely want to get Pat's take on this. We made this probably the last question from me, and then we'll probably open it up for Q&A from the audience. But so, Pat, my understanding is that AVs are by and large also electric vehicles. It's kind of they go hand in hand. So I would imagine that for you and from your perspective in the AV industry, you're probably watching the EV industry very closely, watching these conversations. So from your perspective, to what extent is the EV and AV industry essentially intertwined? And what are you as an AV professional looking for in these conversations and these narratives that Danita was referring to that could be relevant to the future of AVs?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And I think, as you kind of put it right, there's a strong convergence. And I think, obviously EVs, when we think about, kind of the total cost of ownership, obviously, with less moving parts, with the ranges that are coming out now with the battery technology, you can really have a highly efficient vehicle when you're thinking about moving people around in a dense urban environment. And so, while we follow the conversations very closely, we also are impacting them. And so what I will highlight is, when we formed the joint venture that is Motional, right? So the collaboration between a leading tier 1 automotive supplier in Aptiv and Hyundai, which everyone knows is one of the largest OEMs in the world, right? And also making very good strides in terms of moving their fleet into, a higher percentage of electric vehicles. We were able to discuss at the time, and we really hit it at a strong moment where they were developing what's being labeled as like the Tesla killer, but their Ioniq 5 electric vehicle platform, which is a really groundbreaking platform. We were able to come in the middle of the development and think about how we could integrate really, right, in a seamless way, our autonomous system into their vehicle platform. And so, I would say it's kind of interesting timing. We just announced this morning that the Ioniq 5 will be the platform that we do go to the market with. And so if you go to motional.com, I would encourage everyone to check it out. You can see actual images of the vehicle that have our 30 sensors all embedded into the system. That will be a mass-produced vehicle coming off a Hyundai manufacturing line. And so, for us, we're very unique position. We're able to take advantage of the efforts of our partner in an OEM to really embed our system and do it in a very scalable way. And so it's been a very exciting journey to see that come together. And, in terms of that commercial launch and kind of speaking about, the journey here ahead of us, we do plan to deploy those vehicles in a commercial fashion in 2023. Which is a partnership, building on that heritage we have with Lyft, but a commercial agreement that we announced last year.
Congrats. And I think Kate put the link in the chat so people can check it out as well. Madison, I believe we do only have a couple minutes, so should we head to Q&A from the audience?
We can absolutely head to Q&A. We have a few more minutes left, and I know that there was a question that popped in. What's happening in EVs where the vehicle is in an airship? I think autonomous air vehicle is the answer for metro areas, especially one that is booming as Austin is. We might even keep some green between our economic centers. Not sure who wants to tackle that one, but that is one of the questions that came in.
Yeah, I don't know as much. I follow the space a little bit. I mean, I think there's a lot of strides being made in electric aviation. I won't claim to be an expert on it. I do have actually an expert on my team who is coming from that industry. But I think that the same promise there, right? I think, but it also has similar challenges. I think there's been some really exciting demonstrations of the technology. But again, right, with whether it's autonomous vehicles, autonomous, aviation or electric aircraft, it all has its challenges in terms of infrastructure, as we've kind of been alluding to, and the operations of that. And so, I think largely, I think that there is a high promise of being able to move people, vertically in cities over the coming years. And, you can see ultimately, as we think about reducing congestion and the more freedom of movement of people across the city landscape, I think these are all going to play an important role in the future design of cities.
Yeah, and I think the only other point that I'd add to that is where we're at in terms of sustainability, which is a really core theme, is that we really do need an all of the above solution for removing greenhouse gas emissions from all forms of transportation and energy use. And so I think anything that can help us really move the needle and take emissions out of of transportation, whether it's, on the roads, in the air, on the rails, everywhere is really important.
Might follow up with that, Danita, with a bit of a sticky question. Oh, we're ending at 4:30, I think, Madison, so maybe we don't have time for a sticky, challenging question. So maybe instead I'll just ask like a kind of lightning round question. Where do you hope to see the future of your industry in 5 years' time? Really easy, but if you could just give the 10-second version, Pat, and then Danita, we'll end it on hopefully an inspiring note.
Yeah, no, look, I think 5 years from now, we'll have moved from, as we alluded to, really these small deployments. And I think, some players like us, letting the public try, but move away from, some of these more confidential pilots that are occurring today. And I think 5 years from now in major metropolitan areas, AVs will be a fabric of how people get around. And I think, we were talking with the panel earlier, I think my 6-month-old, my hope is that, he may never have a driver's license. He will never have to invest that high upfront cost of owning a vehicle, but he'll still have that freedom of movement, both, within a city and then ultimately beyond as we continue to expand the ODD of our vehicles and start to connect, kind of those operational centers.
And for me with EVs, I think in 5 years, we'll just be starting to have conversations about what you can really do in terms of vehicle to grid. So using that electric vehicle battery as more of a grid resource, I think that's going to be really starting to emerge. And because what's going to cause that to happen is two things. One is the technology is going to be there where you can actually use the battery as a vehicle to grid point. And then the other piece is that there's going to be a higher penetration of vehicles on the grid. So hopefully by in 5 years, we'll have, maybe somewhere between 10 and 15 million vehicles in the US deployed. And so every vehicle that's out there means one more consumer that understands the technology, that can be an advocate and really start that snowball growing.
Okay, well, thank you both so much for your really thoughtful answers. I know we only scratched the surface, but I'm sure folks can find more information at your company's website on your LinkedIn pages. So thank you so much. And I guess I'll turn it back to the MassChallenge folks.
Awesome. Thank you, Vanessa, Pat, and Anita, for that amazing conversation. And I guess we'll wait for the sticky question in a future version of this. So thank you so much. What a fascinating preview. So we have startup pitches now. So we're going to have 60-second pitches from our startups, just enough to give you a sense of what they're working on and why them. So we'll cheer them on. I'll loosely be timing. So not going to cut you off right at 60, but if you start to drone past 90, we might ring the gong. And then, as I mentioned, we'll have opportunity for networking after. So definitely make note of the companies that you're interested in engaging with further. Cheers are totally encouraged in the chat. It is not easy to pitch your company, so let's give it up to them for sure. With all of that, we will start with AI technology and systems. Rohit, you are up.
Thank you, Kate. So this is sensor, and it's a dumb sensor. There is 1 in your toaster, 10 in your phone, and 100 in your EV, likely more, 300 in your house, 30,000 in the plane, and 300 billion in the world today. 2020 alone shipped 40 billion of these, and all of them are dumb. We make them smart. We make these sensors smart with the software and firmware provided by our no-code platform and compiler technology that's competing with Google. Our software brings real-time, on-device smart applications to these tiny sensors running on battery, often without internet connectivity. Our TAM is 26 billion and is growing at 40% CAGR. AITS is a NASA iTech finalist company that has recently won a cash award for being a deep tech innovator. Our beachhead customer is a railway network agency that's building a product for over 120,000 kilometers in length. We are looking for guidance and connections to proliferate this. Like Pat said, the EV itself has over 30 in the autonomous module and over 100 in the entire vehicle. So we have a strong role to play in the EV space. If you like, talk to us. We are in the forum. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well done. All right. Bedad, you're up.
Yeah, thanks, Kate. My name is Bedad Yousefi. I'm the founder and CEO of Arena AI. So we're developing a very fast and efficient AI processing technology that enables scalable intelligence within the resource-constrained environment of edge devices. So the way that we do this is by embedding the computation within the memory so that the memory becomes a processor itself, and by doing so in a very scalable fashion. And then by doing so, we can lower the energy needed to kind of run very sophisticated AI models on edge devices without really draining the battery too much. So this novel technology is ideal for situations where intelligence is needed, but energy is scarce due to a need for mobility or a lack of constant access to energy source. There are smartphones, and there are a lot of IoT devices that fit in this category. And thank you for your attention.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right, Maggie with points, you are up.
Hi, everyone. My name is Maggie. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Points. We're a mapping app for micromobility riders. So micromobility is like bikes and scooters, skateboards, things with small wheels. And the way that our solution works is we rate every road in the US now on a safety scale, for, specifically for bikes on a 1 through 5 safety scale. And then our routing algorithm favors the roads that are better for those types of vehicles. And that is our base layer. And then we add on crowdsourcing on top of that to perfect the routing algorithm. So kind of like Waze, but for bikes and scooters. We're currently beta testing in 60 cities and towns across the United States. So if you're a rider and you want to test, you can just email me and I'll get you signed up, and we'll be launching publicly on the App Store later this fall. So anybody in the micromobility space, I'd love to connect with you.
Awesome. Thank you, Maggie. And get in early on the beta test for sure. Preserve Technologies, KM, you are up.
The dark jungle down there. These are the words of a veteran construction supervisor describing underground space in cities. An unexpected underground pipe that I found last year at one of my construction projects in Cambridge doubled the design cost and delayed my project by 1 year. So at Preserve, we provide Google Maps of underground. Our maps help cities and companies scale their network of charging stations and avoid costly underground accidents. My name is Cam Raoufi, and I'm the founder of Preserve, and we aim to provide automated construction and mapping of the cities.
Awesome. Thank you, Cam. Great pitch. Up next, we have Alex with Natreon.
Hello, everybody. I'm Alex Koskov, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Natreon. We're a Binghamton, New York-based energy storage startup focusing on solid-state battery innovation. Now, solid-state batteries are a really promising technology because they mitigate fire risk and enable the use of higher performance materials that have the potential to nearly double the range of electric vehicles. However, though this tech is promising, not a single innovation being brought to market today will actually make it to market within the next decade or so. That's because they can't make use of existing battery production lines or existing supply chains. And for that reason, we developed a technology called MassCEC, which can be rapidly and at minimal additional cost be integrated on virtually any battery production line. In addition, we enable the use of the most high performance battery materials available to the market today, which we're already demonstrating with 2 commercial pilots that we launched earlier this summer. We've already garnered interest from companies like Tesla, Renault, and Foxconn, and we'll be ready for commercial launch by the end of 2022 and usher in the age of mass market viable electric vehicles. So thanks so much, and look forward to meeting you all.
Woo! Great job, Alex. All right, Persist Energy. Barrabi, you are up.
Thank you, Kate, and thank you, panelists, for the great speech today. So transportation is important for developing nations because they're home to a lot of they're home to huge populations of micro entrepreneurs who depend upon two-wheelers for the transportation, right? So the transportation is expensive because of the high crude oil prices. And what we're doing is we're taking electric vehicle technology and making it accessible to the population that needs it the most. These are the people who can really benefit off of the cost saving of electric vehicle technology. We look at this as the most prominent use case for mass adoption of electric vehicles, and ergo, this is how we want to reduce the greenhouse gases. And we are making the electric vehicles affordable by localizing the technology in a form factor that is suitable for these people. And we're also coming up with interesting business models such as purchase the bike and lease the battery. And we're making it possible through smart IoT systems that we're building. Our customers are really liking our product and are very eager to get their hands on it. And we also already raised a lot of pre-orders. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. And there's a great video that he has. If you go to his breakout room, you'll get to see that also. All right.
Actually, I'm going to post the video here as well for everyone who wants to see right now.
Exactly. And we encourage all startups, feel free to use the chat to market. Always be selling, as we say. All right, Jeffrey, you are up. Sentai. Oop. Robbie, are you pitching for Jeffrey on this one? Do we need to skip, or is Jeffrey here?
I think Jeffrey should be here. Jeff, if you are there. Looks like we can't
Is this
hear
working
you.
better?
Yep,
there you go.
are.
Oh gosh, I'm sorry. I had
No, don't worry. It was a good buildup. A lot of suspense. We're excited.
You can read my lips.
We can hear you. The floor is yours.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you so much. So I was going to say, this to me is a drone. This won't carry you places. It's not quite big enough, but it's quite discreet. It'll get into tight spots. I think that's some nice applications. My company Sentai is in the business of providing vision-based autonomy for a drone of this size. Our technology allows it to hover in place, avoid obstacles, fly through tunnels, all without GPS and at all light levels from day, night to darkness. And this is technology we've been developing under SBIRs with DARPA and the Air Force. And we've actually successfully delivered technology to primes, universities, and government. My secret sauce are basically a set of custom developed neuromorphic vision chips of our own design that incorporate insect-inspired visual processing and flight control. If you're interested in geeky stuff like this, please find me. I'll be happy to talk to you. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right, we have next up DRB Diego.
Hey, we'll actually move on to Ghostwave next.
Okay, we will skip. Ghostwave, Dean.
Good afternoon.
Welcome to the stage.
Good afternoon. Did you know radars can talk to each other? When this happens, it's called unintentional jamming. I'm Dean Zodi, founder and CEO of Ghostwave. Ghostwave is a radar company commercializing radar patents from The Ohio State University. Instead of a finite number of repetitive signals, our radars are transmitting millions of random signals. This makes the radar stealthy and immune to jamming and interference. Ghostwave has completed $2 million plus contracts with Ohio Federal Research Network. One is using our radars as drone collision avoidance sensors. The second contract is using our radars to intercept drones carrying drugs and weapons into prisons. Let's talk about how Ghostwave mitigates interference and crosstalking of adaptive cruise control radars. Stop by the Ghostwave Zoom breakout room so we can talk more about the cool things we are doing with radars.
Woo, Dean, that is a great end. That is how you do it. Awesome pitch. Thank you so much. All right, Rotor X, Jeremy, you are up.
Hey, everybody. I want to talk about something that we do quite often. That's order things from Amazon and Walmart. And we always want the quickest delivery. And for businesses, that they have to account for that. And that cost can be very high to deliver that couch, that 56-inch TV, or those 80 pounds of dumbbells to work out while you're stuck at home. And they want to do this all within the same day or within 2 days. Now imagine completing these deliveries within the same hour at the fraction of the cost. My name is Jeremy Epps. I'm the co-founder and CEO of RotorX, and our team of PhDs from Georgia Tech's Unmanned Aerial Vehicle Research Facility have built an easy-to-use heavy lift drone to pick up and deliver over 100 pounds worth of products and deliver it to any location within 60 miles, completely autonomously. With roughly $400,000 in funding from startup prize competitions and grants and demonstrations with companies such as DroneUp, RotorX is on the brink of allowing companies to deliver large range of products quicker and save significant amounts of money on delivery. So who wants to deliver the future with us? Please join us at the breakout room so we can discuss our drone, Paladrone, and RotorX. Thank you.
That is cool. I really hope you have a video also of
Absolutely.
Perfect. All right. Thank you so much. Next up, Endeavor Composites. Hicham.
Hello, everyone. At Endeavor, we're targeting more of an environmental problem and an engineering problem at the same time. Everybody with electrical vehicle wants the car lighter, faster, and stronger. The problem is the price tag of the material. We are collecting all the excess carbon fiber from the industry that's going to landfill, and we're repurposing it into non-woven fabric. Then this non-woven fabric can be turned on by our customer to parts such as a car door that's lighter, faster, and stronger at fraction of the cost of the current presented material in the market that's all hugged by the aerospace industry. If you like to discuss how we can make your parts lighter, stronger, and save you money in production, please find us in the discussion room.
Awesome. That is great. Thank you so much. Next up, we have Karthik with Stoke.
Thanks, Kate. Hello, everyone. I'm Karthik. I'm the CEO of Stoke. We are an industrial IoT startup based in Silicon Valley, and we make it really easy for companies to monitor remote industrial equipment. So whether you're interested in monitoring power generation equipment in the grid that are in remote areas, or really any mechanical asset in the mobility ecosystem, our solution Smart Edge is quite possibly the simplest way to monitor their condition. It's a simple device. It takes just about 20 seconds to install and doesn't require any additional infrastructure. The insights about their condition is available right away, so you can optimize your operations. Please hit me up later if you're interested in learning more, and check out our website at stoke.global. We are Stoke Asset Monitoring made simple. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Super interesting. Definitely stop by to learn more there. Next up, V-Rotors, Neil.
Thank you, Kate. Hi, I'm Neil from V-Rotors. The future is coming with fleets of thousands of unmanned air and ground vehicles for delivery and transportation. The problem is, how are companies going to manage these massive live operations and maintain oversight and control? We solve these challenges with our scalable enterprise software platform, and we do this today with terrestrial remote drones for a top 5 telecom company and a robotics program, including the X Prize Avatar competition. So we'd love to show you our videos. Come see us in our breakout room. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you, Neil. That was great. All right, next up we have Vivek, Adventus Robotics.
Thanks, Kate. Labor shortages and high costs are crippling corporate productivity and profitability. Trillions are spent annually in high-income countries on labor to drive machinery ranging from floor cleaners to push wheelchairs to farm tractors. Our self-driving technology transforms any existing wheeled equipment to autonomous operation, thereby slashing the cost of a human operator, relieving labor shortages, increasing safety and corporate agility. We license our technology to the world's largest OEMs who install it onto their existing manually operated products to eliminate the need for a human operator. They market those self-driving products globally through their existing established channel networks and provide CyberWorks an ongoing recurring SaaS usage fee. This business model allows us to scale globally almost instantaneously, mitigate market growth risks, inventory risks, and manufacturing risks, and minimize investment requirements. See us in the breakout room to learn more.
Wow, awesome. Thank you so much. Next up, Into Health Design, Mason.
Hi, y'all. I'm Mason Lusich from Into Health Design, where we're developing a smart portable refrigerator to keep temperature-sensitive medications safe at all times. Hundreds of medicines, think insulin, Humira, Neupogen, biologics, require very tight temperature ranges to maintain potency. This can be difficult even with a refrigerator, let alone during times of travel, outdoor activities, and especially in times of limited access to electricity like natural disasters. Our solution will provide protection and peace of mind, both during daily home use as well as these other more demanding situations. It has a high degree of power grid independence with a battery that can last multiple days and can recharge through the wall, your car, or even with a small solar panel. Our patent pending technology allows us to precisely control the temperature of the device contents, providing accurate temperature maintenance that eliminates the risk of freezing and overheating for these medications. This could have been a game changer during the aftermath of Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico, where over 900 diabetics lost their lives with causes including medication spoilage. At Into Health Design, no matter where or when, our users' vital medicine will be readily available and protected. Thanks.
Thank you, Mason. And last but not least, I believe we have Jeffrey, loop closing.
Hey, thank you, Kate. Food waste. It's one of the single largest drivers of greenhouse gas emissions and climate change. In the US, we spend $11 billion annually mismanaging food waste, focused on an approach of haul to a centralized processing facility. The high costs, restrictions, inequities, and ick factor of smells, spills, and pests prevent us from meeting the societal and clients' needs. Loop closing deploys a decentralized approach by placing composting machines where dumpsters currently stand. No new space is needed, no hauling is needed, and it's where we already put our food waste. So supporting this network of commercially available mechanized composting machines provides a path to meet our needs, and it's as easy for clients as putting out the recycling while saving money at a dumpster at a time. So please join us in our breakout room or contact us via our website, loopclosing.com. Thank you.